Hey, welcome to this episode of Is It Worth It? Today we're talking about, is sourcing locally worth it? I'm joined by Janine James from Laxwama. She is the public relations manager, and she is just awesome. If you have been around Lancaster, you have seen Janine James around town being awesome. Thank you for being here, Janine.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So today we're going to talk about, is sourcing locally worth it? What does sourcing locally mean to you? Like not the feelings that it evokes.
Yeah.
Like if you were defining sourcing locally versus sourcing not locally, what does that mean?
I mean, my definition is pretty in line with, the financial definition of using a sole proprietorship or a local business that's not a chain store. So it would be those mom and pops. I mean, they might have a couple of locations, but they are in usually one central location. And so that distance can be kind of relative depending on where you are. But I think it's pretty specific in Lancaster County. It's a pretty unique situation. So yeah, that's my definition of it. I think that it can locally could be in a tri-state area or something like that as well. But the way that I see it is something that's close to you, in your neighborhood, in your region,
In your community.
in your community. Yeah. And those businesses where you have entrepreneurs who are running that rather than a larger corporation.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
When I think about sourcing locally, as I've applied a few brain cycles to this topic ahead
Yeah.
of time,
I'm sure it's different for a
right.
business owner yourself, because you have to source larger amounts than like an individual shopper or person.
Sure. I came down to, it's like it fits into three categories that I'd kind of like to frame our conversation around. One is the financial decision, because there are financial implications of sourcing locally versus sourcing, let's just say, in the anonymous online
Yeah.
community. There is the emotional reasons why you may do those things, and then there are the intentionality behind it.
Yeah.
So I kind of like to frame it along that. Is that kind of what you were thinking, or did you have other frameworks that maybe we should talk
I think,
about?
and I think it's different for like a business owner versus an individual who's working for a local business or local authority. In my case, that there are different considerations and different impacts to that. I have, when I was working in a leadership role at a business and I had to source things, there is those three categories came up, but it is different. The cost and expense that you can afford as an individual can be different than a business owner. There's all kinds of decisions that impact that as well.
I agree. There's a weird pressure. So
Yeah,
right with
yeah.
let's just talk financial.
Yes.
I'm going to pick a ridiculous thing. Let's say beverage napkins, because neither of our companies use
100%.
beverage napkins, right? So I could go to my local supplier of beverage napkins, and I could buy a pack of 100, let's say, for $5. Or I could go on Amazon or some other online source and buy them for like $3. So now there's a financial decision that I have to make about, what are these beverage napkins doing for me? How is buying them locally at a higher value still a value for me? Or is it not? Do I just have to pay the lowest price? Right? There's a lot of pressure
Yeah.
in that decision.
And it's different, like, I think when you're an individual person, you can just be like, it's worth it. Like, I don't know if if that's something, this is probably revealing a bit more about my personal financial habits, but I think that there's times where, based on the other two, those like emotional ideas, those intentionality behind it, you're saying, oh, it's worth it. But when you are a business owner or a leader in a business, you're considering, is this financially wise, and how does it impact the rest of the people here? How does that impact my employees? Because it's not just buying that thing that one time, but if you, run through that, product more often, if you have to constantly buy it, that $2 can start to make a difference, and it can start to impact the other financial you know.
It can make me less competitive, right? If
Yeah.
my competitor is buying those bev naps at bev naps, you can tell I was in the food industry at one point. Beverage napkins
Yeah.
at the $3 price, then he's putting his markup on it, whereas I'm putting a markup on it. Now I'm $2 more than my competitor is.
And that's the thing too, if you are also a local business, if you are also a smaller business, you know, there is economies of scale. And so, you know, if you yourself are already kind of in some margins and, you know, in my experience in being in leadership in a local business in Lancaster, it is different from being like in a larger corporation where sometimes those margins are they have a lot more flexibility in them. And so you do start to count, it would be financially unwise to not at least note the difference or to make that price comparison. And then especially because it can impact your employees. Like if you're saving money, you're able to perhaps put more into salaries or put more into other points of investment in the community and in your company that makes it like more attractive to them. You know, $2 that's spent here that compounds over time could be used to buy higher quality chairs, or, you know, there's all kinds of ways that you can invest that money in your business. And so it doesn't affect just you when you're in that position versus as an individual, you're comfortable with whatever compromises you make and, you know, to invest locally in something. So it is a little bit different. And, you know, I found it, to give an example, we had a course that required a lot of books. I want to say like 5, and we had to buy about 25, like 5 times 25, right? And we had to make a decision. Like we tried to source as many as we could locally, but especially if one of the books is not a very popular print, or if it's not necessarily out of print, but it's in that, you know, weird middle ground between editions.
It's called the long tail in
Yeah,
publishing.
yeah. And, you know, so one of the books was less popular, and so it was not going to be on anybody's bestseller. It's less likely to be on the shelves at your local bookstore. And the price was almost double. And that's the question. Is like sometimes it's a little bit easier to make the decision because it's like $2, you know, versus, you know, $4, and that doubling is a little bit easier. But if we're talking about something like books, which are already running at like, you know, anywhere from $20 to $40, and then you double that, and then you have to, you know, compound it on how many folks are participating in a course or something like that, that's when those kind of questions become much more significant, and that decision making has to happen really quickly. And that's when you have to assess your personal values and your values as an individual and what sacrifices you're willing to make in order to buy locally. And then you have to say, well, how much do my values impact or influence my business? So I think that that's what's kind of interesting, is the different ways that you can think about it. Because sometimes your personal values don't necessarily perfectly align with your total business values, which is possibly unpopular opinion. I don't know, but I think that in any kind of group setting, there are compromises that you make.
I agree.
Yeah, so I think that that's just part of being like working well together.
A good financial steward, even.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Because my personal preference may always be to buy from someone local, but I might have to buy it somewhere else just because I can't afford to stay in business and buy local. And I have people that rely on me for jobs. Right?
Yes,
And so
exactly.
I've got to make that choice as well.
Exactly. And that's kind of what I'm getting at, that I think that sometimes it does get harder. It does become this idea financially of, you know, what's really happening here. Is it like affordable for me to buy 40 books at double the price? And, you know, I could afford it this one time, but would I even be able to keep up that pattern if I have to do this every month? Or, you know, how sustainable is it? And I think that that's a question that you have to ask yourself and reevaluate. You know, how sustainable is it? Something that I can make a habit, or maybe it is something that I can only do once a year. Like maybe that first time I'll buy here, and then the rest of the time I'm going to have to go with a larger manufacturer of these, and sometimes go directly to the source or talk to wholesalers. It just depends on what you're going through, but I think that that is a question that is important to evaluate, is how much of my personal values, and not necessarily like the larger ethical ones that hopefully we all hold in common with like morality, that you're not going to like have workplace violence or anything else. But
Right.
there are some personal preferences that you have, like, you know, the type of coffee you like to drink or the type of cream you like to have in the refrigerator. I don't know if you all have like shared coffee section here.
We do have a shared
I
copy.
think that is the key to any successful business. I think I associate that with like best business practices. You need to have a coffee
I
area.
mean, we have a bun coffee maker, like a professional.
Oh,
bun
okay.
coffee
So basically,
maker.
what you're saying is, I need to come visit my neighbors at H&H.
Anytime you need a cup of really strong.
Could you imagine, like, I just come here randomly, and then I'm just like, hey guys, and then just go back to my job and act like it's completely normal, like
Yeah.
on my lunch break, just be like, hi. Yeah, I think that's like, I think that's something to kind of think about. It's like your personal preferences. Those are your personal values. I am not kidding when I say I have a personal value around coffee. And sometimes, you know, it makes sense to influence and to share that with folks, but sometimes people don't care.
So let's hear, what coffee do you buy and why?
Oh my.
And from whom?
Oh my goodness. I think, see, now this is putting me on the spot because you know there's a lot of local coffee shops in
I
Lancaster.
do. So if you
I
would
feel like
rather
I'm
not
announcing, like, you know,
I'm asking you for your personal preference.
my personal preference. It's really interesting. I think they do different things well. Like, one thing I will say is, like, I had the opportunity to travel a lot for work in different professional settings. And so I would go to like California, Texas, Kentucky, like, you know, you would go all around and you would find like what community has like stronger coffee ethics, and Lancaster has the best coffee. I would say I really love Prince Street. I can't remember their overarching, but their coffee is really great. I love to like buy the packs and like make it at home.
And they have locations both in Lancaster and in York.
Yes. Okay. And I can't. It's just slipping my mind what their overall company, because it's Prince Street, it's Passenger, and there's one more thing that is I can't remember, but they have like really delicious like notes and things. They have like undernotes of like caramel and like fruit. I can kind of become a little bit of a coffee snob, and I used to live like right around the corner from Passenger, and on the one hand it was a little bit embarrassing because it meant that like I spent a lot on coffee in a week, that they would recognize me and be like, oh, okay, I know exactly what you want to get.
But it was bringing you a different value than Maxwell House or Folgers could bring you.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with Maxwell
Not that
House
there's
or
anything
Folgers.
wrong with it, but I cannot remember the last time that I've had like a larger coffee, you know, maker. It's always local. I think I love Lancaster Coffee Roasters. There was a brand that I tried from Cherry Hill Orchards that is very old brand. It's like Gerhardt or something.
Yes.
I mispronounce Lancaster things all the time. So
Sure.
like I was calling Beelers for like a smoothie year. And someone was like, it's Beilers, actually. I'm not from Lancaster
When
County.
two vowels go a walking, the first one does the talking, except in Lancaster, where it is exactly the opposite.
Thank you, Mike. Because everyone acts like I, you know, have never spoken English before in my life when I, you know, moved here and had to learn how to, you know, speak Lancaster. I just did it with, what was it? Stouffer's.
Right.
I was like, oh, I went to this awesome place. I forget what I called it. And they were like, it's Stouffer's, actually. So, you know, I think that like there's a lot of opportunities to buy local. And even if you go to like a larger grocery store here, you can still source local coffee. And that's a real treat.
So I think there's another benefit of buying local, right? Buying online is easy, right? I don't have to leave the house. I can get it off on my phone. I can do that.
Yeah.
But it's
At
also
4 a.m.
It's also tremendously impersonal. So I had the opportunity to buy paper bags for a local art maker. who needed some paper bags, and I was available, so they asked me for the favor to do that. And I could have gone online and ordered them, but instead I found in York there is a place called Blouse Paper Supply, which allowed me to, maybe I'm saying that wrong, but I think Blouse Paper Supply. So I was able to go
Write
there.
it in the comments, wherever.
Right. One of the things I was able to do was negotiate the price. Right, I could talk to the person. I could feel and see the bag. I could make a deal with the person by buying more. Right, whereas if you buy on Amazon, you tend to, if it's a pack of 25, I can buy 5 packs of 25, but it's the same price whether it's 1 or 5. Right, so there is a opportunity to make a longer term relationship that has business value and
100%.
could bring the price even in line with where the online provider
Yeah,
is.
100%.
Just because you make that connection with a person or a real business.
And I think that there's a level of trust in that too, that, there's something different between, I will say that as a consumer, I'm a very involved and emotional consumer. If someone is like really kind, I'm more likely to buy like 2 of whatever I'm getting. So I hope that none of those coffee places are listening right now, because they're going to be like, all we need to do is smile and she'll buy a coffee and a croissant. But like when I'm asking that question, sometimes there are decisions that you have to make. I've typically been in creative leadership roles, and so there are a lot of decisions that are presented before me of, choice in quality or choice in style. I get asked to compare companies and, not necessarily companies all the time, but sometimes if you need a service done, you have to say, okay, which one are we going to go with? When you have someone who has been trusted, you don't have to make that decision. That's one less decision you have to make because you've built that trust.
I agree. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like and it's a person that you can trust. It's a lot easier to say, I'm just going to go with this thing because I know this person. I know that they're going to put the quality in it. And I know that if anything even goes wrong, because things always go wrong,
No matter how hard people
no matter
try.
how hard you try, even if you're a perfectionist, I'm a recovering perfectionist.
Congratulations.
I'm in recovery. It's going pretty well. Things are going to go wrong. But when they do go wrong, when you know the person, you say, hey, this went wrong. Like, what are we going to do? How are we going to solve this problem? And it's a lot different than when you're calling some nameless, faceless, and you're sitting on hold for, 4 hours and you're screaming representative because you are tired of talking to the robot. I don't know if anyone else has had that experience.
Guilty.
Yeah, and you're just like, representative, and you're just
And you're
actively getting
angry
louder.
by the time you actually get to speak to a real person.
By the time you get to speak to a real person, you're like, I know it's not your fault because you're, and they're not even in your area. They have no context for what happened versus when you are buying local, you're like, Mike, this happened. Like, how can we, whatever. And I'm not saying you can catch you like every day, like right away per se, but there is a series of dedicated people. There's a team of people that even if I can't catch Mike, I can catch another person and another person, another person, and I can get that solved of real people who are invested in their work and care about their work. And so that really cuts down on that decision making because I'm like, oh yeah, I can do this thing and I can trust that they'll make it happen or that they'll make it right if something goes wrong. And so I think that that's one of the benefits of, when you have these local businesses, you get to be excited when they do something innovative or creative, when there's like a new flavor of coffee or when there's a new business opportunity. You can have that built-in trust in not just the quality of what they're creating. I also find too that frequently because those local businesses have a lot of passion behind them, there is sometimes a higher quality to the item or good or service that they're providing.
So a great example of that is Lancaster Gift Box, right? They have built their business around this sourcing locally. The
Wow.
only things that go in the gift boxes that they prepare are things made in Lancaster. So they have a relationship with like Ham and Pretzels, with Macy's Candies, right? They have a relationship with all these places, and they take those and they curate these gift boxes that then go out, and someone else can have a taste of Lancaster. But I mean, they could have put Lay's potato chips in there.
Yeah.
They could have put anybody's kettle corn in there, right? They could have put anybody's caramels in there. Not everybody makes Stroopies, so I don't know that they can.
Yeah, that's something that I didn't have until I moved to this area. I was like, what is a Stroopy? Yeah.
Right, yeah. But I mean, they have built their business around it. And there's a marketing element that as a business, you can say, hey, you're going to pay a little bit more, but it comes with this social responsibility check mark of, you have helped support your community and the jobs in your community, right?
Yes.
As opposed to I am helping support jobs from who knows where, or even maybe even support poor working relationships, right?
Yes.
So I love that social element of that intentionality, that emotional aspect of doing that business that way.
Yeah, and I also would say that I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the environmental sustainability benefits of buying local and sourcing locally, if that's something that
Tell me
really
more.
matters to you. There's a couple of benefits. So first, there's the emissions of travel, right? So if you're buying something that's very far away, that has to get to you by car, by truck, often by plane even, right? So the emissions are a lot higher on, something that you're sourcing from the furthest out, like especially like internationally, right? For a lot of cheap goods you can buy from way across the ocean, and there's a lot of higher emissions price on that. And then, also a lot of these items being higher quality means that you're going to use them longer. And so if you're just consuming cheap things and they just keep breaking or deteriorating, or, you're not going to use it as much. You're not going to really enjoy it and hold it in the same high esteem. I have a mug that I was given by my brother and sister-in-law when I moved to this area. And, it was locally created, it's crafted, it has the map of Lancaster County underneath of it. And I use that thing just about every day. And it's important. It's becoming almost an heirloom, even if though it's only a couple of years old. It's something that I treasure and I value, so I'm not going out and just buying another mug and another one because the handle broke or something like that. And so I think that from an environmental standpoint, a lot of these businesses here are like B corporations who are already taking into account and auditing their environmental impact. Even if they're not doing something with traditional markers, they're doing other programs that have environmental stewardship as a large part of their mission. And you can count on that because, once again, they have it in their mission. You know the person who is doing this, and you're able to even see their accountability as they continue to update you. And it's just a lot harder with a larger scale business to hold that person accountable, to stay on top of their, it's not impossible. There are companies like Patagonia who are, taking back their materials and reusing them and things like that. So I'm not saying that's impossible to do that when you're buying not local or buying traditionally, but there is something really impactful about knowing not only is this the best chocolate I've ever had with I feel, once again, I feel bad because there's multiple chocolate places, but Wilbur's Buds, I had that for the first time in this past year. And I have an unhealthy obsession with, I was like, why didn't I know about this? This is the best chocolate I've ever had in my life. But it's local. And you're like, oh,
I've
that's
seen
great.
them for years, and I've never actually tried one.
You need to try it. I don't know if I'm overselling it. I don't know if it was like, I also have this terrible habit, Mike, of forgetting to eat because I'm just getting in a zone. I don't know if this is not the time to talk about that. But, it's like a perfect little snack, and you just, I don't know. They're just life-saving. Sometimes you have, at my place that we work, we have a kitchen, and so, someone can bring something and then they just leave it with like a note of like the content. Sometimes it doesn't even have any content. It just says like enjoy, but sometimes it's like, I don't know, I had too many, or my mother-in-law came to town and like we don't eat sweets at home, and so they just like bring the food.
We do this enough that we actually have a table that if as anything is on that table, it is free game.
I think that that's amazing. I think that it's kind of implied with our table too. Like we have an island, and anything that's on an island is just like fair game. But usually it has like a note, because sometimes it doesn't. But people do know if it's like on the island, then it's fine. But it has like a note like, hey, like my pear tree had, too much pears, and so here you go. They look ugly, but like enjoy. This is a real transcript of a note. But I think that that's another thing too, is that sometimes that overflow, and this is economic as well, the overflow of the business, that when the business does well, everybody does well. That's another benefit of buying local in your community, that you often see the direct impact of those dollars going back into your local community. And so, sometimes I'll be at, one cafe and I'll see a cafe owner eating at another cafe owner's spot, having like dinner or, whatever, or a lunch meeting.
Right. That's important. That's important.
Yes.
I think it's a great place to end our conversation. Hey, thank you so much for joining us. I'd love to hear below in the comments, do you think that sourcing locally is worth it or not? So comment below. If you have a topic that you want me to discuss with either you or someone else, just shoot me an email at info@thinkhh.com, and we'll see you next time.